Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Dr. Jan with Relationship Matters TV. I hope everyone is having a glorious, beautifully blessed morning, afternoon, or evening. Well, we're here right outside of Chicago, and we have been enjoying this weather. Although we're waiting for the next storm, hopefully it won't be bad. It wasn't all that bad. It was up north, towards Milwaukee. That was pretty bad. So, but you know what? As long as there's no snow, I'm happy. So I am going to jump right into it today because this is a subject matter that I hope you're very interested in because I'm really interested in it. It just opens up a new pathway for me anyway of thinking. And our guest is an expert at it and something a little bit different from someone else that I talk with about neuroscience. It's kind of like a different take. So let me tell you a little bit about him first. Wow. I know that piqued your interest, but let me go into a little bit more detail about Keith. And I'm going to tell you why I love his name. Well, let me tell you about Keith Greer. Okay, well, Keith, L.C.S.W, P.C.C, and he can tell you all what that means. He has leveraged over 45 years of experience as an executive coach, a family therapist, and trainer toward his compassionate, creative, and influential work with individuals, families, and organizations. He's passionate about the practice, art, science, and utilization of neuroscience based on conversational strategies that result in deep and authentic human connection and co-creation. He is the creator of the conversationally intelligent leadership process. I wanted to get that right because we're going to talk about that. That's a leadership training program that brings together concepts, practices, and skills for several evidence-based modalities, including conversational intelligence, psychological safety, family systems, relationships, motivational interviewing, and positive psychology. He has a lot of clients, individuals. He does teamwork for organizations, for nonprofits, family-owned businesses, and he's highly effective. He's a passionate and enthusiastic speaker and trainer. And he has a podcast. We're going to talk about that. His podcast is called The Helping Conversation. So guess what? We are going to have a conversation about the conversation. So let me bring him on, Keith Greer. Hello, Keith.
Dr. Jan, how are you? Thanks for inviting me in.
Oh, well, thank you for being my guest. Did I tell you why I liked your first name?
I think you told me there's someone pretty significant in your life with the same first name.
Yes, my husband's name is Keith. Yes, that's a wonderful name. So I want to start with this. This is for me and for my audience. What is neuroscience?
So, neuroscience is um, it is a field that looks at exactly what goes on in our brain, where, what kinds of neurochemicals we're talking about. That has everything to do with, in my world, with behavior, with decisions we make and how we interact with each other, and more specifically, um, the neuroscience that I make the most use out of, it comes from this modality you mentioned called conversational intelligence. Conversational intelligence was created by a brilliant woman by the name of Judith Glaser, who was an executive coach, sadly passed away about 10 years ago. And conversational intelligence looks at the neurochemical underpinnings of how, like right now between you and I, as we have conversation with each other, what types of conversational patterns, strategies, habits do each of us utilize in talking with each other that either land in the other person's brain and causes their brain to say, "Oh, I think I can trust this person," or lands in the person's brain and kicks them into a bit of fight flight. I perceive threat, don't know if I can trust this person. And so one of the cool things about this modality is that in my work with folks, I can actually sit with them and deconstruct their conversational patterns and in a very detailed way be able to work with them and highlight what are some of the ways you interact with other human beings that seem to work, that bring people closer to you, that cause people to perceive you as trusting and safe and inclusive, and maybe what are some patterns, especially in the world of leadership, that cause people to experience the opposite with you.
Wow, wow. And I really like that because that has our conversations have so much to do with our relationships.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some of the strategies? Okay, how do we know that, we are not utilizing our own neuroscience, I guess that's within us. How do we do that?
So we're using it all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. Because this, so I want everyone, you and your listeners, to think about maybe the last time you were in a conversation with somebody and that conversation did not go well. Maybe you walked away angry with each other, or you just had a sense of, I don't trust this person, I don't feel safe. So we have a point in that conversation, in that interaction, where we perceive this person. I become aware in my thinking that, I don't trust this person. Now, perception for many of us happens pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But perception is glacially slow compared to a concept called neuroception. So neuroception is how quickly does our brain recognize threat? And our brain recognizes threat much quicker than it actually enters our perception. And as soon as our brain recognizes it, a neurochemical cocktail kicks in our brain that gets us ready to do fight, flight, freeze, appease. Right? Those four strategies when I perceive threat. It happens so quickly. And so part of my work with folks is helping them understand that by the time either you perceive someone as not safe or someone perceives you as not safe, there's already been a period of time where either brain is already at work. And so you and I walk into a room together we've never met, and we start to have a conversation. 0.07 seconds is how quickly our brains, we don't even have to have started talking, just from the moment we enter the room, we lay eyes on each other. 0.07 seconds is how quickly our brain starts to determine friend or foe.
Really?
And so so like I always, when I work with leaders and I use this example, it's you have somebody brand new on your team. It's their first day of work, and they walk into your building, and they walk down and they meet you and your team. 0.07 seconds for this new person, their brain is starting to determine, can I trust this place? Can I trust these people? And vice versa, your team's response to the new person. So what does that tell us? It tells us that we need to be incredibly thoughtful in that first split second of how we interact with folks. And back to your question, am I guilty sometimes of maybe using some conversational patterns that don't land well in people's brains? Because it happens that fast. And I will add a second piece to that. I'm that new person, let's say, walking into my new place of employment. Not only am I reading everybody in the room in 0.07 seconds, but if, let's just say, I happen to be a person with some history of trauma, that makes that process that much more intense. Let's say I'm a person who has a history of multiple times in a workplace where people have proven untrustworthy. And so it just puts the onus on, shines a spotlight on how quickly, if we are really interested in fostering trust and safety and a sense of inclusion, how quickly we want to be on top of that.
And so let's say I'm a leader.
Yes.
In an organization.
Yes.
How do I use this? Okay, so there are a lot of organizations, corporations that call me in because the relationships, they don't understand what's happening. They don't understand why it's a huge turnover, why people haven't brought it, their employees or whatever haven't brought into their vision, or mission statements, missions. And so as a leader, is that something that I can control, so to speak? So does that have to do what you call making the invisible visible?
Yeah, beautiful. Well, yes. Okay. So everything we're talking about here it's going on right now between you and I as we have this conversation. You and I met once, we're not longtime friends. And so it is going on. So what we know about the creation of trust and safety, or the opposite, is that it happens quickly, and it happens because of some very specific reasons. Most of the time, we don't talk about these reasons. People just don't. So again, let's say you and I have a conversation, and that conversation doesn't go well, and we both walk away really angry at each other. Here's what I know. I know that if someone walked up to either one of us as we were walking away, maybe spitting and sputtering about the other person, and asked either of us, right now, give me your best explanation as to why that conversation went south, I know that most people would say, well, the other person is a so-and-so. Mm-hmm. The world's worst explanation for why what happened just happened. And if that's the explanation I walk away with, well, Dr. Jan, she's a this. Now, you and I don't interact again with each other for 6 months, a year. We happen to run into each other in Starbucks. The minute we lay eyes on each other, guess what is front and center in our head? That conversation from a year ago. I relive all of the feelings I had about you and all the assumptions I've made about you, and we go nowhere. So yes, what we can do here is make the invisible visible. The other way I think about this is, there's a company I do a lot of work for. They're a very high-tech company. They make high-tech optics. Every time they have a new project and create some new optic, they have an entire department that process writes. This department sits and writes down the specific engineering steps they took to create this, so that the next time they sign a contract to do this, they know what they did. What I do in the conversational world, in the trust world, is I help people process right. I help people identify what exactly either happened, especially if things didn't go well between us, or more proactively, what would I like to have happen
Okay.
between me and this other person? So one of the ways we can make the invisible visible is, and I do this with individual clients. I teach people how to do this with colleagues, with their whole team, is to do basically, it's just a trust and safety agreement. So one of the things we know is everybody perceives trust and safety differently. All right. So major mistake we make in the conversational world is something called assuming shared meaning.
Say
All right.
that again.
Assuming shared meaning.
Okay.
Okay. So again, right now, as you and I are having this conversation, every word that comes out of my mouth is wrapped in meaning based on my 67 years of life, having seen the world through my eyes and my eyes only. I know what I mean by what I say, but the mistake we make is as I'm talking with you, and this becomes more important as the conversation becomes more important, maybe emotional, um, lots on the line, is as I'm talking, I know what I mean. And I assume when my words cross the room and land in your ears, you're going to assign the same meaning to them.
Mhm.
But nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because you've seen the world only through your eyes. And so trust, respect are these wonderful words that we think we agree on their meaning, but they're fuzzy. And so sitting and doing a trust and safety agreement could be something like, all right, Dr. Jan, if you and I were going to continue to do some work together, or we were a team, what would each of us need to, over time, develop a really strong sense of trust, safety, and a sense of inclusion with each other? Another way I word it is, what does trust, safety, and inclusion look like, sound like, and feel like to you? Or another way I word it is as you and I get to know each other and we're working together as a part of a team, if trust and safety were in the room in the way you needed it to be, what would the evidence be? Because if you can bring clarity to that, well, here's what trust and safety looks like, sounds like, and feels like to me. Here's what respect looks like. Here's what appreciation looks like, sounds like, feels like. Well, then I can say, okay, well, here's the evidence I look for. This is what's meaningful to me. Now, we might find places where we are in agreement about the concepts, but I can guarantee you we will find places where we're not. We see things differently. And so one of the things I ask my clients all the time is, in conversations, how invested in win-win are you? How
Okay.
invested are you in, I want conversations to go well. I want to
Okay.
go well. I don't want to, I'm right, you're wrong. I want them to go well. Well, if we're both invested in win-win, then when you say to me, Keith, here's what I'm looking for. If you interact with me this way, I will perceive you as trusting and safe. I'm going to be like, all right, Dr. Jan, that's exactly what I want. Let me share with you what these concepts look like, sound like, and feel like to me. This is going on, Dr. Jan, whether we talk about it or not. So this is that making the invisible visible.
Oh, okay. What I really, kind of, when you said, let's say a person walks into the room and your brain starts, you know, and to me, that's kind of amazing. But I started thinking about that. Someone can walk into a room and you automatically decide you don't like that person or trust that person, and you haven't even talked to that person. And so, what the heck is that? And then someone asks you, "Well, why don't you like that person?" And you say, I don't know. I just, you know,
Yeah.
wow.
So here's another concept that this is a bias of mine in my work in the leadership world. I don't personally believe it is possible. First of all, back up. Leadership is nothing more than a relationship. It's a relationship between the leader and their team. It's a relationship. And so a lot of the concepts that work well in our relationships, in our personal lives, work well there. So in the world of, and this comes from my family therapy days. So while I do not do family therapy in my work with leaders, I would
Okay.
be lying if I said I don't hear some of that family therapy voice. And one of the places I hear it is this concept of projection, of what we project onto each other. So I read this article years ago. I wish I had held on to it. I need to admit there's not an ounce of research to support what I'm about to say. It
Okay.
just has always felt so intuitively right to me. And the article was about the projection process. And what the author talked about is this belief that they stated that by the time we are in our late 20s, we never meet a new person again. We
Really?
only meet people who remind us of people we've already met.
Really?
Now, again, not an ounce of research to support that. But so again, so when you and I met our first time, when we had a conversation about me joining you as a guest, one of the things that was going on for both of us from the moment we came on Zoom together is our brains started going through our internal Rolodex. So for you, it's every single human being you've ever interacted with that looks like me, sounds like me, male. Well, you don't know that I'm 6'3" sitting here on Zoom, but say, tone of my voice, intonation. I'm doing the same thing for you. It's what we do because it's one of the ways our brain creates meaning, is it looks for patterns. So it just happens. This happens for all of us. But that experience you just mentioned of why do I not like someone, or why do I seem to have such an emotional response to this person that I don't have with anyone else, or why does this person, they just get under my skin and nobody else does. What I believe is that person is somebody else. That person is somebody else from some other time in your life. Usually there's a lot of this that goes all the way back to initial caregivers, family of origin, and especially if some of those experiences were not very positive. And so let's bring this into the leadership world. And there's an aspect of leadership that's about a power dynamic. Well, who were the original power brokers in all of our lives? Mom and dad, initial caregivers. If some of those experiences weren't so positive, do I project onto the leader some of the characteristics from some other people in my life? And if I'm not aware of this, I'm not aware I do this, then I have these reactions and I don't know where they come from. So one of the concepts I teach leaders is in their leadership, when they have that experience with people on their team or anybody else, God, I just feel like I know them from somewhere, or I have all these feelings for this person. I don't know why. I always ask them, okay, when you interact with that person, who walked in the room from some other time in your life?
Wow.
Because I can guarantee you, so it's called the projection process, or in the therapy world, it's called transference and countertransference. But it's wholly relevant to every relationship we're in. It's very relevant to the leadership relationship. It's not the be all and end all, but it's an interesting concept to just be thoughtful about when I either have this overreaction to people, or I just can't get to a place of liking them, or, I hear people say this all the time. Boy, every time I interact with this person, I feel like they're trying to be my parent. Well, yeah, there's probably some truth to that, or at least that feels that way to you. So once again, making the invisible visible.
Wow. So we have a question here from Maxine Walker. Kind of goes to what you talked about a little bit. And she asked, what about vibes that a person put out, such as body language, and they haven't said a word?
Maxine, brilliant question. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. All right. So The research would tell us that in the world of communication, nonverbal communication, depending upon the research you look at, is 95% of communication. The content of what we say is I'm not going to say it's irrelevant, but it's not nearly as relevant. We also know that when there is a discrepancy between a verbal message and a nonverbal message from the same human being, we will 100% of the time go with the nonverbal message, 100% of the time. So if I were to say to you, Dr. Jan, I am really interested in what you have to say. I'm really listening. And as I'm saying it, I'm looking at my phone.
Right.
Your brain says, I'm going with the nonverbal. Right. And so that's that vibe sometimes that we can pick up from somebody. It's not what they said. It's body language, it's face, it's intonation. It's in today's world, it's being distracted. I have a leader I work with who leads a team, and there's a number of people on their team when they have team meetings who will say, I want to be in front of my computer, in front of my laptop while we're in our team meeting having discussion, because it's one of the ways they take notes. But one of the things that they started to realize in the room is when I'm taking notes, people perceive me as not listening.
Right.
Even if I
Right.
say I am. And
Right.
and oh, by the way, when people say, when people say to me, but Keith, I can multitask. I can look at my phone and listen to you. Dr. Jan, there is not anything I have read in the research anywhere that says we multitask well. Our brain does not multitask well. It does one thing at a time well. And so, yes, so reading the vibes of how someone comes across, that's that part of our brain that is trying to pick up, do I perceive you as threat, not safe or safe?
Okay. So here's a text, and it says, lack of trust creates anxiety. How can we overcome the dilemma before it gets out of hand?
Awesome question. So one of the greatest ways to overcome, not easy. There's a lot of this that is easily talked about, not necessarily easy to do. It is to talk about it. So if you and I interact with regularly, let's say, and there's some aspect of our interaction that I am struggling with you, either I feel like you don't pay attention because you're distracted, or you interact with me in a way that leaves me feeling not appreciated and valued, which, by the way, is in every research I've ever read, always in the top 5 reasons why people leave jobs or leave the company they're employed by. I do not feel valued and appreciated by
Yeah.
my boss or whoever. If I bring voice to that, if I'm willing to talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm willing to go to you and say, Dr. Jan, look, can I have your permission to invite you into what might be a challenging conversation for you and I? It's really important, Dr. Jan, that you and I get along, that we see the best in each other. I want to be upfront with you. There's sometimes you interact with me in this way and I struggle with it. And I just want to share that with you because I hope we can find some middle ground, because I'm going to go back to what I said a moment ago. Can people enter conversations with a win-win mentality? Do
Yeah.
people want the best in conversations, want the best with the people they work with? And so this raises another concept that I talk, and it's right up there with make the invisible visible. And I think you mentioned it in the introduction, and that is how to have a conversation about the conversation.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So everything we're talking about, if we know all of these factors impact how you and I are going to connect or not connect, we can do this either at the start of a relationship, like part of having a conversation about the conversation is that trust and safety agreement. What does trust and safety look like, sound like, and feel like to you and I? That's that's laying out this agreement of what works. Let's have a conversation about the conversation. But let's say you and I have some experience of not connecting well,
Okay.
of sometimes getting annoyed with each other, not feeling valued by each other. Now, what I say to people is the time you don't want to try what I'm about to say is right after an experience where we're maybe annoyed with each other, not the time. And we can talk about why that is. That's also based in neuroscience. But maybe at another time when things are calm, to go to you and say, hey, look, there's just some aspects of how you and I are interacting that I'm struggling with. And I don't want to struggle. I want us to be well connected. I want us to work well together. Can we talk a little bit about that? So, hey, Dr. Jan, you know what? If you ever need to give me some feedback, like let's say, we're team members, you need to give me some feedback. Are you open to hearing from me the best way to do that? Because I want to hear it. Like, I really want to hear it. Or are you open to hearing from me how you can interact with me in a way where I will feel valued and appreciated? Because Dr. Jen, you always say to me that you value and appreciate me, and I believe you, but sometimes I don't know, it just doesn't feel like we connect there. And so what we're doing is not in the heat of the moment.
Okay.
We have a conversation about how do we want our conversations to work, and what do we need from each other, and what are we willing to give each other if we are invested in win-win. And I'll just say one last thing, because the antithesis to win-win is something in the conversational intelligence world, they call it the addiction of being right. I'm right. I'm right, you're wrong. And I imagine every single one of your listeners
and me
can think of somebody in their personal life and their professional life who, when you're in conversation with them, I'm right. And you want to talk about a conversational pattern that causes other people's brains to say, I don't trust you. I'm right, you're wrong.
Wow. And there are people that you run across, no matter what, they cannot be wrong.
No.
And sometimes you might even find that with yourself, where, I refuse to be wrong.
Yes.
Wow. So I got to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, I want you to talk about the 5 conversational blind spots. And how we know how do we find out what our conversational blind spots are? Because I want to know about me anyway.
All right. Sounds good. Definitely.
Okay. All righty. So we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, because you know what? All of us have these conversational blind spots. And I want to know what mine is. And I know I might have even more than one. And I know you want to know about yours. So we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, because we need to find out this stuff. All righty. See you in a minute.
If you are looking for a speaker for your organization, look no further than Dr. Janice Fortman, an international speaker, award-winning author, and producer and host of Relationship Matters TV. What sets her apart is that she connects the heart of relationships with the power of communication and leadership. Dr. Jan's goal is not simply to inspire audiences for a moment, but to give them the insight and tools to transform the way they live, lead, and relate to others. Contact her at drjan@drjanicespeaks.com or 1-877-667-7325.
All right, we are back with Keith Greer. All right, Keith. What are the 5 conversational blind spots, and how do we know which one is ours?
All right, so I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to ask everyone just to think. All of us have probably some pieces of all 5 of these, because it's just part of being human beings. All right, so first one we've kind of talked about. Blind spot number 1, assuming everyone thinks like me. All right, everyone sees the world like I do. I'm right, you're wrong. It is if it's not number 1, it's at the top of the list of conversational killers, trust killers. I'm right, you're wrong. And Dr. Jan, all we need to do, we can take this out of the world of leadership. All we need to do is look across our society and across the world right now at the evidence at all levels of leadership, political leadership, corporate leadership, just community leadership, of the tendency for people right now to say, I'm right, you're wrong. You need to think like me or you're wrong. It's the worst. And, I joke because I sometimes say, boy, if everyone viewed the world the way I did, the world would be a much better place. But I know that's not true. And I know when I interact with people, if I want to connect with people, if I want to relationship build with people, if I want to understand and be understood, I have to enter that conversation fully aware of where I maybe have a greater tendency to fall into that blind spot of everyone thinks like me. So that's number 1. Number 2, feelings don't change my reality. All right, so we're going to get into, again, a little bit of neuroscience here. And this is a very simplistic take on how our brain works, but it's always made sense to me. Back of our brain, home of emotion, amygdala, right? Limbic system, front of our brain. Prefrontal cortex, home of rational thinking, weighing pros and cons, being able to connect with other human beings. When I'm here, right? So this is really important for folks to think about. When I'm here, and I use front of the brain and back of the brain all the time in my work with folks, because it just makes sense. When you are in the back of your brain, you are in an emotional place. The metaphor that they use in the neuroscience world is to think of our brain as an orchestra, and there's different sections in an orchestra, right? And when the orchestra is playing, all of the sections are playing, but at any given moment, one section might be playing louder than the others. So it's harder to hear the other sections. When we're in a strong emotion, angry, resentful, hurt, inadequacy, frustration, it's harder to hear the front of our brain because we are in this place of strong emotion. And there's some really, I don't want to say simple strategies. They're simple in explanation, not so simple to do, that I work with people on how to, when you are in front of somebody who is in strong emotion, back of their brain, ways of interacting with them that help them calm and be heard and feel respected. But when I'm here, I'm not here, right? To be here, to think well, I need to be in a calmer place. And so if I don't trust you, I have some interaction with you and I'm in a place of distrust, it changes everything about how I perceive my interaction with you, think about it, remember it. So there is no question that feelings change our perception of reality. very much so. So that's number 2. Number 3, related to number 2, I can empathize with you even if I'm in fear. No, you can't. Fear is here. The practice of empathy, which is an incredibly complex human strategy, skill, is front of brain. I cannot empathize with you if I'm in fear. I fear you. So,
Right.
If someone says, I want to take you out, but I want you to be sensitive to me, not going to happen. Not going to happen. There's no connection there. For me to connect with you, for me to listen to your pain, I have to not be in fear myself. I have to believe that you respect me, want the best for me, right? So anytime that I am in fear or any other, I can't empathize. And empathizing is one of the greatest ways that we connect with other human beings. That's number 3. Number 4, I remember, therefore I know. So you and I had a conversation 6 months ago, as we talked about maybe earlier. It didn't go well, right? We walked away angry with each other. And somebody brings up that conversation. I say, well, I remember what Dr. Jan said to me, and she said this, and she said this, and she said this. And if you had a similar conversation, you'd say, that Keith, he said this, 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 and this. Well, what we know in the neuroscience research is our memory of what each other said is horrible.
Okay.
Horrible. Here's what we remember. You and I didn't have a great conversation. I remember what I thought about you or what I felt about you. But I don't remember the facts of what was said. I don't remember those well.
Wow.
If someone took a video of you and I in that initial conversation not going well and played it back, we would not remember most of what was said, the content, the words. I'll remember I was angry with you. I'll remember that I felt attacked by you. Right? So I remember, therefore I know. No, we don't. And the other way I think about that one, larger scale, there's something called the Rashomon effect. I think Rashomon was an Asian filmmaker. Now, anyone who has siblings will relate to this. I have an older sister and a younger brother, and sometimes when we get together and we talk about things that took place when we were kids and we were all in the room together and our memories of what happened are radically different, and we look at each other and say, wait, we were all in the room. That's not what happened. Some of that is because of some of the complex way our brain feeds us back memory. But I remember, therefore I know, no, blind spot. And the last blind spot, related very much to things we've talked about already, is I'm listening, so I know what you mean.
I know better than that.
Right. I'm listening. The only way I know what you mean is for me to check in with you. Dr. Jan, is this what you meant?
Yes.
Or for you to say, Keith, I want to bring clarity to what we're talking about here for me. Just because I might even think I'm a really good listener, I do not know. Meaning lies in each of us. And if we don't share it explicitly with each other, then I'm doing what we talked about earlier. I'm assuming shared meaning, and I'm assigning the meaning that's in my head.
Right.
Those are the 5.
Wow.
All right. So it's assuming everyone thinks like me. Feelings don't change my reality. I can still empathize when I'm in fear. I remember, therefore I know. And I'm listening, so I know what you mean.
So Sandy Barney Ennis says, you remember what you wanted to remember. And Maxine says, I agree with you, Sandy.
Yes.
That's true, because sometimes someone can say, well, you said this, and did I say that? I don't remember saying that. Well, I knew I was angry. And then another text came in from Gwen Dunbar. She says, one thing that I realize is that many people only want to get their point across so they can be heard. This is not a conversation. We have to be able to listen to each other. You have to be able to hear and understand whether we are right or wrong. Yes.
Brilliantly said. But our tendency as human beings it's related to that addiction to being right. I want to get my point across versus how do I listen? And if I believe this, and it is proven true in my life, if I listen first, if I'm the one who takes the risk and says, I'm going to shut up, I'm not going to share what I think, I'm going to listen because, so in one of the concepts that I talk about in leadership training is this concept of asking questions for which you have no answer. Because we've all been in conversations with people who are asking us questions, but even their questioning feels like they're trying to push us towards their perspective.
Right.
Questions for which you have no answer are truly that. I'm talking with you, Dr. Jan, you're talking about some issue. I am so curious about your take. I so want to understand your take. I'm going to ask questions for which I have no answer because I want to get more information from you. And I want to have trust that if I do that with you, you'll reciprocate. And if I find, I'll give you a really quick example. I presented at a conference last year, and I was having dinner with a bunch of people, none of whom I knew. And I struck up a conversation with a gentleman, very, very nice guy, around my age. And as we were talking, because you go back to your one listener who asked about picking up on a vibe, it became apparent pretty quickly that we probably see the world in some different ways.
Okay.
Either from a value standpoint, politically, we probably see the world in some different ways. Very nice. And I was very aware inside, Keith, listen, just listen, right, to what he has to say and how he views the world. And it became even more apparent that we see the world in some different ways. I listened, I asked questions, because Dr. Jan, I want to think most days, I truly am curious about how people see the world, especially when they see the world differently than I do. I'm curious about where that comes from. Being curious about it doesn't mean I have to agree. I'm just curious about it. And I listened and I listened and I listened. And then he started asking me some questions about how I see the world.
Okay.
And he listened and he listened. And by the end of dinner, we had a wonderful conversation. We kind of joked towards the end that we both probably do agree. We see the world differently, but it was respectful. There was some level of connection. There was no judgment. And I look all around and I see the opposite happening all the time. If I listen, if I'm truly curious, authentically interested in other people's perspective, I want to think that they will share back the same way.
Okay. So another text came in here. What is the worst case that you had to deal with in trying to help people?
I would say the most challenging conversational strategy that just does not work, never works, is this I'm right, you're wrong. When I've worked with, and it's not just people in leadership, but what's coming to mind is some folks I've worked with who were in leadership. And what it is, and I see this, and this is a very general statement, but this seems to be much more male, men in leadership, and maybe especially even maybe men of my age, us baby boomers, is part of what drives the I'm right is the fear of the vulnerability of saying I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But here's what we know, and I share this with leaders all the time. This is such an important piece, and this bears out in the neuroscience world. So people might be familiar with the neuropeptide called oxytocin. It's kind of the cuddle hormone. So it's the hormone that gets created, neurotransmitter that gets created when we feel connected with people, when we feel safe. There is great evidence that when a leader demonstrates vulnerability, I don't know, I was wrong, what do you think? I want to hear how you see it. When a leader demonstrates vulnerability in real time, it actually increases the production of oxytocin in the brain of the people who are listening and witnessing that. Because vulnerability, unlike what a lot of people, again, especially men of my generation, have been brought up to think, is not weakness.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is strength, 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 strength. It's real, it's genuine, it's authentic, and people's brains love it. It creates connection between leaders and their team if leaders are willing to take the risk to put down the I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm all knowing, and no, I'm not. Right? I'm not. You tell me. Or wow, I really messed up their team. I own that. So that need to be right, and the difficulty with vulnerability is, boy, at the top of the list of some challenging conversations I've been in.
You know, okay, so Maxine says you're not listening if you're talking, like cutting into someone's unfinished thought. That's very good. And what you're saying, Keith, you know, you use that in leadership, but I'm looking at it, it's just like in personal relationships.
Yes.
You
yes.
know, and what you're saying, you know, I'm really taking all of this in, especially the blind spot. I found you were saying, I'm not going to say which one was mine, but 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 you know, so Keith, because we only have a few minutes, time just goes by so fast. So I want people to know how to get in contact with you. I'm going to put as much as I can put there. So
yeah, they're welcome to, I have a very simple basic website if people just want to come and learn a little bit about me or contact me, or I'm on social media as people see, or just email Keith at keithgreercoaching.com. I love talking about this. I love problem solving with folks if they find themselves either they had a challenging conversation or there's someone in their life and they just walk away time and time again, not sure how to connect, or they keep having not the greatest experiences with people. Now, the question I sometimes get asked, Dr. Jan, is, well, if I want to change the tenor of conversation with someone in my life, what if they don't want to? I don't have a really good answer to that, other than I'm a really big believer in we control what we can control. And I am a believer that if I change how I interact with someone, not only is that the only thing I have control over, it can bring about change. If I approach conversations more thoughtfully, more intentionally, with a greater focus on trust. Someone said earlier, I think it was Maxine, about listening. Can I just start listening better with this person? It has impact even if the other person doesn't have buy-in from the beginning. So I invite people to reach out if I can be of any help, or they thought, just even one conversation, doing some strategizing would be helpful to them.
Okay, so what you're talking about and what I'm getting from you is the difference between listening to understand versus listening to connect. We want to listen to connect.
And we're too busy thinking we're supposed to listen to understand. And if I think I'm supposed to listen to understand, very quickly in the conversation, I'm not listening well. I'm manipulating things in my head, what does it mean? And that versus all I want to do is connect as a human being. There's plenty of time to listen to understand if we're problem solving or something like that. Where we go wrong is we don't take the time to connect. Connection gets created. People ask me, all right, of all the strategies, what's number one? Number one, you're listening. I want to listen. I bring true curiosity, not judgment, curiosity. I bring true authenticity. I want to be real. Man, it's huge.
And the last thing I see, Rhonda Brown says, this was very confirming. Thank you for helping me to realize that I'm not uninformed.
Awesome.
Right. And Keith, thank you so much. I mean, You have brought understanding to me. So what I want you to do, just say what those 5 blind spots are. Don't explain them. Just say them.
Number 1, assuming everyone thinks like me. Number 2, feelings don't change my reality. Yes, they do. Number 3, I can still empathize when I'm in fear. No, you can't. Number 4, I remember, therefore I know. No, you don't. And number 5, I'm listening, so I actually know what you mean. You don't know what each other means unless you check in with each other about meaning.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Keith. This has been a very informative, educational, and enlightening conversations. And I know that according to my text, some of them I just couldn't get to, and the chats, that you really brought a lot of value and understanding. And I'm going to try not to think that everybody needs to think like me. I confess. So you have a beautiful rest of your evening, and thank you again for being a guest on Relationship Matters TV.
It was my pleasure, Dr. Jan. Thanks for inviting me into the conversation.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Wow. That was pretty good. I really enjoyed that, and I really, it was enlightening to me. I love hearing about those 5 blind spots. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And I want everyone to have a beautiful, blessed rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And I want you to remember there are all kinds of relationships, all kinds of relationship matters. Life is about relationships. So I'll see you again next week on Relationship Matters TV. Bye-bye.